Hey there everyone, I'm Locum23, and you're joining me for How The Last of Us 2 Should Have Been. Disclaimer, this will include gameplay, spoilers, and whatnot. So let's go ahead and dive right into it. So I believe the beginning was perfect. It was the set for everything that was to happen, and it was to, in a way, bringing Tommy into inclusion, telling him what had happened with Joel, the Fireflies, Ellie, and everything else. And it was a great way to start where the game takes place. However, I believe that instead of giving us jumping into the future, which would have been the present, I believe that the flashbacks should have been then played out from that moment on. So once Joel tells Tommy, which they're doing in a secluded place away from any prying eyes, ears, whatnot, they then ride into town, and as you can see, Joel's polishing the guitar and everything, and it was going to be a gift for Ellie. I believe that should have played out in order. Now, why do I believe that? Because it allows us to get this feeling, as instead of them being flashbacks, that we're moving forward in time. You know, 6 months later, 12 months later, and then jump to that moment, and then play out that moment, have some gameplay, maybe even have her out on things that weren't included, of her training some more with everyone in the town, getting to connect with some of the people in the town, getting connect with the Dinah, getting to connect with Joel, maybe even showing the kind of Ellie pestering side of what she wanted to know, because that was something that they kind of, she would drop the question every flashback, but then it would just be dropped. It would just be dropped. Something would happen in the flashback, or, the emotions or whatnot would get in the way, or suddenly something would interrupt them, and the whole nine yards. I don't think the other side should have even been remotely close to the beginning couple hours in game, and unfortunately that's how it was in the game. I believe it should be completely removed, and I want you to imagine that for a minute, that the flashbacks are now being played out as if they are in the present. One of the best scenes in the game for me of flashbacks was Ellie's birthday. And it was him not telling her the surprise, and, letting her go to a museum. She would put on hats on dinosaurs, she would put on hats on even Joel, she would wear a hat herself, she would explore her facial reactions and whatnot in the mirror, and it was just taking everything away from this super dark, super serious game, and being very beautiful. I mean, for even me, it was kind of like a tearjerker. It was a beautiful, beautiful flashback. And again, these things should have been played as if they were normal. And it would have brought our feelings for Joel and Ellie and what was to transpire, that will transpire, at least in some perspective, and rekindle our feelings and whatnot. And then also the fact that if you would have had some of these flashbacks, well, we'll get to that in a second, but I also specifically love this one because it shows right now what we lack so much. And a lot of kids are out there playing games and whatnot, and a lot of them don't have imagination anymore. And that was one thing that also really set this flashback into motion, was just the beautifulness of sitting there and just using your imagination. And how many kids, how many adults, how many anyone can honestly say they've used their imagination lately? It's kind of as rare as common sense anymore. And it was just a beautiful, beautiful scene. Now, it also showed what a lot of people haven't experienced, Joe. That this little girl, which is Ellie, is growing up. And every teenager starts rebelling, or starts wanting answers, or starts to want to understand things and whatnot. And you as parents, you're not perfect. You're going to fumble, you're going to do a whole nine yards. And finally, Ellie was tired of asking Joel all the time and never getting an answer. And so she went in one of the flashbacks and she found out her own answers. And finally she looked at him and said, you tell me right now. And finally Joel confessed to her what had happened, why Joel did what he did, and all nine yards. And I believe in that moment, survivor's guilt, which is something that they should have even added maybe even a little bit more on, that kicked in. It was, Joel's, I wouldn't say total greediness, but, I mean, think of it this way. Joel lost his daughter. Joel had become an isolated hermit, a loner, and then he went and was like, you know what? I really, really, really want to go and here's this little girl and being enabled. And he grew. He grew as a father to Ellie. He really took her, under his wing and the whole 9 yards. And it was just something that he was like, yo, you know, you're my daughter. And that's how a lot of people bonded with this. Is Joel was a dad, Ellie was a daughter, and the whole 9 yards. And this is why a lot of people are torn on this. They really are. Again, if you would have had these scenes and events, and maybe even adding something, which was allowing even patrol missions just for a little bit, kind of like a Days Gone feel of doing a quick mission or whatnot here and there, to bond with Jesse, to bond with Tommy, to bond with Dinah, some of these people that you were being told that these people really matter with you, and you matter with them, and kind of pushing this revenge narrative that they did push, that they, how it should have ended, is going to be pushing this revenge narrative even more, and it would have given more of a revenge plot and a revenge feel for Ellie. Now again, we would have been feeling for Ellie. We would have been feeling for this relationship that we were just hurtled into. This relationship was just wham bam, thank you ma'am. Like, even when it was dropped in the trailers and everything, it was like, yay, Ellie's in a relationship, that's nice and everything. And there was a lot of complaints, a lot of things that in that moment, specifically this one, that is now, it's beautiful now that you've played the whole game and everything, and you get this feeling, and even showing some people like this guy, that weren't bonded completely with Ellie, or, even dumb things can come out of your mouth when alcohol's involved. But it would have continued to grow feelings and show Ellie mature and where she was, and kind of put her in this perspective that we needed for this game. And also some of the things that happened to Joel too, because Joel was slowly becoming a changed man. I guess you could say he was kind of finally becoming content with the community. It was more peaceful. It was getting back to normality. And also, if I may say, it was also showing that the divide between Ellie and Joel was there ever since the confession, and that finally there was mending or not. And one of the last flashbacks cutscenes that should have been included, again, this would have drove it home for why Ellie did what she did, is she was standing there bonding with Joel. And this was told at the very end. And it's something that shouldn't have been. That they, after all this, why she felt so strongly that she wanted to bring each other together. It even showed how Joel had become. That he, the simple things in life that he was willing to give everything for now was just a cup of coffee to get normality. And as a person who has grown years and years and the years since Last of Us 1, and I am the person now that I am, when you get older, you become wiser, but also at the same time, your fire of idealism and your fire of how things should be, and you're willing to stand up for things and fight at your all and the whole 9 yards, it's kind of fizzled out. And I would explain that to you right now, but that's an explanation for another time. Yeah. Now, after Ellie's flashbacks, we then would fade to black, and I want to see Abby. So that's the person who's on the other side of all this, and the reason why the events that were going to unfold were to unfold, and the whole 9 yards. And so then take us back through, jump us back through a time hole of who Abby was, and build us up to then that moment of her meeting Joel, finally, after searching this whole time. Now, I get it. Some of Abby's things would have to be held off until the events of after Joel. And that's fine. But it showed that Abby, as a person and whatnot, even after the events of Joel, started to realize that revenge wasn't everything. Because as I was telling people throughout my playthrough, revenge is a double-edged sword. It's a It's a heavy burden.
You got that?
So revenge isn't everything. That's why some people push for forgiveness for what they were, being wronged. And some people push for forgiveness. Some people push for severe punishment and pain and suffering and things like that. And yeah, there's one side or the other. It really depends on who you are and whatnot.
More?
So,
You can tell me.
that being said, I believe the rest of the game, you could have gone back and forth. Ellie, Abby fighting, getting revenge on one another, hunting down the events of Tommy and what had happened. And then, yes, the flashbacks that were already there during the events of everything, with what was going on with Abby and versus Tommy and things like that. That was perfect, especially when you're playing with Lev and then the Jesse and Ellie and then,
Here you go.
the whole 9 yards, the whole gameplay was fine. You couldn't make this as perfect as Last of Us 1, I'm sorry. No one's really come up with any differentiations or conclusions or criticism on how they could have made this game better, and I'm proud to say that this is my own thing that, during the gameplay, I had even said, this is how you could have made this game better. Midway through, let alone all the way through, I kept reinforcing the point. And a lot of people that tuned in totally agree with me. The only part that I wished could have been changed was Ellie had been like a mother or father, whichever, but she had been a family member to the baby. She had been with Dinah, and as you see here, I mean, the landscape was beautiful. And I think a lot of people wish this would have been the ending. That maybe, just maybe, that Ellie and Abby would have had their fight and got, it's kind of like when Rocky went to fight one last time in the ring, that he had to get that, what was left of him out, that finally, Ellie had hunted down Abby, they had thrown punches, they had both been tired, they had both been worn out, and, Abby went her way with Lev, and Ellie went home. Ellie went home to her family, Ellie went home to her friends, and you could have seen this moment here being perfect. With her just being at peace. Her having a family. What Joel had wanted her to have this entire time is peace. Because he literally gave up everything for her. And you could have, I mean, yes, the ending for Last of Us 2 is very bittersweet. It's very sour, but it's also very bittersweet. And it's beautiful. In its own way. But I believe, all in all, this could have been the true ending for Last of Us 2. Like, to me, I had hoped, after hunting down Abby and everything, going home, you're wounded, the whole 9 yards, you would go back in, and it was very disheartening. And it kind of showed, though, the fallout from seeking revenge. Like I said, it's a double-edged blade. And it kind of showed that, even the house outside had fallen apart, thing off the window. Even the house itself looked like it had aged 20 years. And, there was no little critters scampering around. There was no happiness. There was no nothing. You walked into a very, very empty home. And, she left Ellie because she just couldn't do it again. She couldn't go through, the fear of losing Ellie, the fear of revenge and retribution if Ellie failed, or if Ellie did it, but then someone else came looking, because they cared about Abby. And again, revenge is a very, it taints you. It really does. It really taints you. And it was really sad to come back to this. No home, no warmth, and everything that you had once seen. And I think that's one of the things that really put a lot of bitterness, a lot of taintedness in a lot of people's mouths, was that essence. You could have literally merged the two of happiness and everything, and, her having the kind of like maybe flashback of Joel and everything, and her going upstairs to the room, picking up that guitar, and just kind of giving a moment and just realizing that these are things that no matter what, you can't go out and seek revenge. You can't get rid of that kind of, in a way, PTSD. That you just can't get rid of it. You know, you can't get over it. I believe if, again, through everything that I've said now, everything that I've shown you, I think if they would have played those events in the way that they did, not have them flashbacks but current events, even added patrols, kind of like a Days Gone, kind of like patrol feel here and there, just quick little things you do to kind of bond with characters, get to know characters, things like that. It would have even brought you more into the game and made you feel more. So, without further ado, that is how I believe Last of Us 2 would have been dramatically better and exceptionally better. It was a journey, wasn't it? It was one that I was really glad that I got to experience with every single person that tuned in to do this. And I, unfortunately, was a person that was tainted by the leaks, but I kept my mouth shut, and I wanted to see how the gameplay was. So let's go ahead and go over to that, and give you the gameplay and score and everything itself, and then if it would have been written in a version like I've just given you. So for Last of Us 2, playing it the original way, I would give it 6 out of 10. The gameplay and everything else, it was buggy. No one can say it was perfect. I mean, I even had moments of the game glitching out and the whole 9 yards. It was a good game. It was a good game. Though I could see through the matrix at times, depending on how you can't angled your camera and what you were standing on. Oh my god, we could see everything. But it was a fun journey. The gameplay was great. The graphics were beautiful and everything. But the story just, it was all over the place. And that's why I felt compelled to do this video. I felt compelled to share my idea, which would have made Last of Us 2 better. Again, it'll never be as good as Last of Us 1 with what we're given here. There could have been a lot of storyboard improvements and things like that that I would love to share, love to suggest, and go into. But I'm working with what we're given right now, and at least trying to get that image across with everything that you've experienced to how you could have reshaped it without editing more in or whatnot. Just with what we're given, with what the clay we're given, to how to mold it into something that would have been even more beautiful. I believe that in my version, if I would have played my version, my opinion, and everyone that I've shared this opinion with so far, it's one of the reasons why I felt really convinced and really compelled to do this. Everyone that I've talked to would have said that what they saw me play versus what they played, it would have, if done this way, would have made it an 8 out of 10 for them. And we are all along the board for scores on that. I would have done a good 8 out of 10, and I think a lot more people would have been happy. I don't think anyone's going to truly be happy unless Joel lives. And that's, there's a reason for it, because what would you have had compelled for Last of Us 2? It would have been a completely different story. So again, given the clay, given what we have here to work with, I think that's what we're given one. I think that's what could have been done. And unfortunately, Joel, was a great guy. But a lot of people are like, no, that's not the Joel. Years passed. Joel changed. And it is human nature. He got contented. There was no more threats besides the infected. There wasn't anyone, he didn't know of anyone hunting him down and things like that. So again, that's how I feel it should have ended, with what we're given. It sucks that he had to go. It sucks that other people got wounded or they died too. But with what we're given, I believe what happened couldn't have happened any other way, with people being off or whatnot. The only other thing you could have added, and I would like to see this in future games like this, and this is a little added bonus for if you've stayed to the end, I would like to see choices. More choices. So you look at the success of a lot of these choices-based games, you're not saying, yo, I could choose to end Joel or not, and that would have been an earth-shattering choice, and one that could have caused the game to end very short for the people who chose not to do that way, or would have been a lot longer for people who chose to, just to see what it would have been like. Kind of like a Detroit Becomes Human feeling. However, there could have been choices to do certain things, maybe minor things, maybe minimal things, and maybe even a big thing here and there. Something that, if you look at Cyberpunk 2077 and all they've promised, and the fact that there is going to be choices type things and whatnot, that it's something that a lot of people are looking into, going, okay, you can hybrid these two types of game genres together and make it into something that's not really done before, that you can still have, kind of like a shooter game, but have a choice with if you pull the trigger, if you don't, if you do, where, like things like that. So I'm hoping that the game industry and the games themselves start evolving into things that where they start bringing into hybrid, because at this point you've got some, really kings that knock it out of the park. However, you still got some games that could have been better if they would have become a hybrid model. And I would like to see more games being hybrid models. I would like to see more games have more elements and more storyboardings and more things like that. I would really like it, but that's just my personal opinion. Without further ado, let me know if you agreed with this video, if you agreed with the image. Maybe some of you might even drop some good criticism down in the video down below. Maybe some ideas that not even I had, or some ideas that I kind of left out. Who knows? But share your ideas. Share this video if you really thought, wow, this was a good explanation, or why not. And just share the channel. Thanks for watching. Catch you all later. Peace.